Good afternoon, everybody. We have the votes counted now, and they'll be going up on screen as I go through it. But I just want to say, first of all, that we did a specific note on voting for the purposes of this weekend, and it's on the website if anybody is interested in it. I just wanted to mention that. Now, I'm going to start with I'm about to give the results of, as you know, of the voting, and I'm going to start with question 1. And question 1 is on the screen now. And the number of eligible voters was 84. The number of votes cast, 84. No invalid vote, so the total valid poll was 84. And I'll now tell you what the question was. Question 1. Do you think the functions of the Referendum Commission should be carried out by a permanent electoral commission? And the yes option, there were 79 votes, that is 94%, and the no option, 5 votes, 6%. Question 2, that question was, do you think the Referendum Commission should be obliged to give its view on significant matters of factual or legal dispute that arise during a referendum campaign in the public domain, including on social media? And once again, 84 eligible voters. There was one invalid vote on this occasion, and the total valid poll was 83. And the result was those who voted for the yes option numbered 78, that's 94%, and the no option 5, and that's 6%. Going on to question 3, that question is, do you agree with the current position where the government is not permitted to spend public money to advocate on one side only of a referendum campaign? Once again, 84 eligible voters, 1 invalid vote, and the total valid poll was 83. And the result in favour of yes, a yes response, 72 votes, that's 87%, no, 11 votes, that's 13%. Then going on to question 4, that question is, do you think the government should provide money to both sides equally in referendum campaigns? Again, 84 eligible voters, no invalid votes, so a total valid poll of 84. And the 2 options, yes and no, those in favour of yes, 57 votes, that's 68%. Those in favour of no, 27 votes, that's 32%. Question 5A. Do you think the Oireachtas should develop and effectively implement a system of spending limits in referendum campaigns for registered political parties, campaign groups and individuals? Again, the number of eligible voters, 84, no invalid votes, so the total valid poll was 84. And those who voted yes, in favour of the yes option, 82 votes, that's 98%, and no, 2 votes, that's 2%. Question 5B, do you think that anonymous donations to registered political parties and campaign groups should be prohibited? And again, we had 84 eligible voters, but there was 1 invalid vote, so that the total valid poll was 83. Those who voted yes, 60 votes, 72%, no, 23 votes, that's 20%. Question 6, do you think that it is a good idea to have more than 1 referendum on unrelated issues at the same time? The number of eligible voters, 84. No invalid vote, so the total valid poll was 84. And those who voted yes, 67 votes, or 80%, no, 17 votes, 20%. And going on to question 7, in the event that there is more than 1 referendum on related issues at the same time, do you think, what do you think should be the maximum number of referendums? And once again, we had 84 eligible voters, no invalid vote, so therefore the total valid poll was 84. Now I'll read through each of the options. The first one was that there should be no more than 2 referendums at the same time. there were 35 votes in favour of that. That is to say 41.7%, and that ranked first. There should be no more than 3 referendums at the same time, and there were 34 votes there, and the percentage was 40.5%, and that ranked second. And you'll notice that there was just the difference between the two was just 1 vote, and that's why we have set out the percentages as we have done. And then finally, there should be no upper limit on the number of referendums held at the same time, and there were 15 votes for that option. That represents 17.9%. Question 8A, do you think it should be permissible to have more than 2 options on the ballot paper in a constitutional referendum? And again, the number of eligible voters was 84, and the total ballot poll was 84. And those who answered yes, 64 votes, or 76%, no, 20 votes, 24%. Then question 8B, if there are more than 2 options on the ballot paper in a constitutional referendum, the outcome should be decided by, and there are 2 options given there, first past the post and PR STV, and the first past the post gained 40 votes, or 48%, and the second PR STV 44 votes, or 52%, and there were 84 valid votes in relation to this question. And I should perhaps say that we had intended putting first past the post in inverted commas, and also PR STV, in other words, proportional representation, single transferable vote, also in inverted commas, but you see the result, it's quite clear. Then question 9, do you agree that in principle the Oireachtas and the government should give effect to the outcome of a referendum within 5 years? There were 84 eligible votes and a total valid poll of 84. Those who voted yes, 75, in other words 89%. Those who voted no, 11%. And then question 10 is a rather long question. Which, if any of these initiatives, do you think should be introduced to try and increase voter turnout? And there are options from A to K. There were some invalid votes. So what I'll do is I'll read the valid poll, and then I'll read the yes and no in relation to each element of this question. So the first element is early voting in the weeks before the poll. In other words, that is an initiative which should be introduced to try and increase voter turnout. So that initiative, early voting in the weeks before the poll, there were 81 valid votes, of which 45 or 56% were for yes, and 36 or 44% were for no. The second element, extended voting over a number of days. Again, the valid poll was 81, 40 votes yes, that's 49%, and 41 votes no, that's 51%. And then the third, weekend voting, 83 was the valid poll on this occasion, and interestingly, 83 votes on the yes side, which was 100%. Then next, online voting, the valid poll was 81, 57 votes for yes, in other words 70%, and 24 votes for no, 30%. The next element is wider availability of postal voting. 83 valid votes, 69 of which were in favour of yes, and that's 83%, and 14 for no, and that's 17%. The next element is the ability to vote at any polling station in the state. The valid poll was 83, 74 in favour, in other words, yes, 89, so that represents 89%, and 9 no, and that's 11%. The next element is automatic inclusion of all eligible voters on the electoral register. The valid poll on this occasion was 80 votes, and 12 or 15% voted yes, and 68 or 85% voted no. Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. I read that incorrectly. It was 78 voted yes, that's 95%, and 4 voted no, that's 5%. And then the next is compulsory voting, and there were 80 valid votes, of which 12 voted yes, that's 15%, and 68 voted no, that's 68%. Then the next element is lower the voting age to 16. There were 83 valid votes, 66 votes or 80% for yes, and 17 votes or 20% for no. And then the next element is allowing voting by otherwise eligible voters who are resident outside the state for no more than 5 years. And there were 84 valid votes, of which 65 or 77% were for the yes option, and 19 or 23% were for the no option. And then the final element of this question is greater provision of voter education on referendums. The valid poll was 82, of which 79 voted yes, and that represents 96%, and 3 voted no, that represents 4%. And then the final question is question 11, and that question was, which, if any, of the following types of citizens' initiatives do you consider should be provided for? And there were 84 valid votes for this. And the first is a citizens' initiative to put a constitutional referendum proposal to the people. And there were 7 invalid votes in relation to this, and so the valid poll was 77, of which 53 or 69% voted yes, and 24 or 31% voted no. The second is a citizens' initiative to put a legislative change proposal to the people, including enacting, changing or repealing legislation. On this occasion, the valid poll was 78, of which 54 or 69% voted yes, and 24 or 31% voted no. And then the final aspect of this is a citizens' initiative to put an item on the agenda for decision by the Oireachtas, and the valid poll was 78, and of which 65 voted yes, that's 83%, and 13 voted no, that's 17%. So that's the result of the poll, and those results will constitute the Assembly's recommendations to the Oireachtas. So that's that. And I just want to wind up. I just want to say a few words before I bring this meeting to a close. Throughout this weekend, we have considered the way in which referendums are held in Ireland, from the historical position to the legal regulation of campaigns, to voter turnout, super referendums, repeat referendums, citizens' initiatives, and direct democracy. We have made important recommendations in all of these areas, and those are the recommendations based on the voting which took place this afternoon. And I have no intention of boring you by repeating the vote again. It's all there, and it will be on the website. Is it on the website now? Yes. Yeah, it's on the website now. But in any event, what I want to do at this stage is to advise you of the next steps. The members have made recommendations through the vote on the ballot. I will now fulfil the next step of the terms of reference. In other words, I will aim to finalise the report of the Assembly on this topic and furnish it to the Houses of the Oireachtas as soon as possible. The Secretariat will communicate the contents of the report and the date it will be submitted to the Houses of the Oireachtas to the members in advance. So you'll see it in advance. And I just want to briefly say a lot of thank yous because we got an awful lot of assistance this weekend. Yesterday we were lucky to have received presentations from speakers which really informed us about this particular topic, and the speakers were all experts on the topic, and I think anybody who was here would have appreciated the quality of the presentations we got. Secondly, there's the expert advisory group. They have provided great direction to the Secretariat and to myself on this topic, and as always I'm extremely grateful for all their work and guidance, and I can tell you they did work hard over this weekend, no more than the rest of us. And then I also just want to mention, I think they're gone at this stage, but I do want to mention the facilitators and the note takers who again worked very hard, and they brought their special skills to the task, and I'm very happy that we continue to benefit from their presence. And of course, most of all, I want to say thank you to the members. I'm really delighted that so many of you have returned in 2018 to see this process through. Your dedication and enthusiasm has not diminished since we began this process with the first weekend meeting in November 2016. Many of you travel long distances to be with us, and I realise that this travel and devotion of time is not easy. I'm also delighted to have met so many new members this weekend. We've welcomed 13 new members, only recently recruited, all of whom, without hesitation, agreed to come along this weekend, and I'm really grateful for that. So to everybody and that I've just mentioned, many thanks, and I want to say particular thanks to the Secretariat, our own staff and the people who come from the Department of the Taoiseach to assist us at these occasions. They give us a great service, and I'm truly grateful. Now, to conclude, we will meet again for the last time on 3rd and 4th of March to consider the final topic, that is fixed-term parliaments. As I think I mentioned yesterday, the submission process is now open on that topic, and it will remain open until 12 noon on the 23rd of February. The Secretariat will soon again start publishing these submissions. As soon as they come in, we will put them on the website, and anyone who's interested may log on to the website to read them in their own time. I look forward to seeing you all again in a few weeks' time, and before calling the weekend to a close, I'm glad to say we did finish up on time, and most of you will be at home in time for Dancing with the Stars. Slán a bhaile.